Good morning and welcome back to Plaas TV. Labour is one of a farm's biggest assets. Therefore, farm inspections are needed to ensure compliance with the South African labour law. However, the farming community's right to safety is a most important right. So how can both parties ensure that the job gets done? Boitumelo Lebeko from VDT Attorneys chats to us about this. The new head of Agbiz Grain, Wessel Lemmer, is also in studio and gives some insight on their work in the industry. But first, over to Lisa for the latest news.
Welcome to today's news. The Deputy President of Agri SA, Phineas Gumede, was recently elected Vice Chairperson of the Southern African Confederation of Agricultural Unions. Gumede is also the President of the KwaZulu-Natal Agricultural Union. He is the Deputy Chairperson of Cotton SA and the Chairperson of the KwaZulu-Natal Cotton Growers Association. SACAO is a farmers' organisation that acts as the voice of farmers on regional, continental and global matters. It ensures that strong and effective farmers' organisations are in place in all Southern African countries. The top 10 finalists for Agri's Got Talent were recently announced. They include Sebenati Zakai from CRI Citrus Foundation Block, Bradwin Jonas from Rietfontein, Eudine van Voigt of Van Loveren and Jenny Marman of Diemerskraal. The Social Upliftment Project gives talented farm, packhouse and cellar workers in the fruit and wine industries the opportunity to showcase their talent. The winner will be announced early in October. And according to a new report by Indexbox, China's beef production is expected to increase. This is driven by a growing cattle herd, particularly on large farms, and strong domestic demand to offset the ongoing pork shortage. In addition, China will continue to increase its imports, fueled by new accreditations granted to meat packing plants in Brazil, Argentina and Uruguay, as well as new trade agreements with these countries. Import growth is likely to slow in almost all other Asian markets as widespread recession restricts consumption in middle and low income households. And that's today's news.
Simparika by Zuyetis, your best friend's best friend.
The Inspection and Enforcement Services Directorate of the Department of Employment and Labour has implemented a project to conduct farm inspections. This was done in an effort to ensure that there is compliance with various labour laws. Boitumelo Lebeko chats to us about this. Boitumelo, what are farm inspections and who conducts them?
Well, farm inspections are a program that the Department of Employment and Labour through its Inspection and Enforcement Services Unit has embarked on to assess the level of compliance with labour laws and health and safety regulations.
So which legislations is applicable for farm inspections?
Well, there's various legislations that apply in the labour law department. However, I'll just name a few in this regard. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act, together with Sectoral Determination 13, which exclusively regulates the basic conditions of employment for farmers in South Africa. The Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Employment Equity Act, and also the Immigration Act.
So what types of inspections are there, if you could tell us?
Well, these inspections basically take the form of labour inspections, which are just to assess the level of compliance with labour laws, that there are sound labour practices, improved working conditions, and also the implementation of new minimum wages. At the same time, it's also to assess that there is compliance with various immigration laws.
So what happens during these inspections?
Well, typically what would happen is that an inspector would arrive at a workplace and they can question any person that they find there, which in most cases includes the employees. And they can ask for various documentation like employment contracts, which includes both permanent and fixed-term contracts, pay slips, the attendance register, and the personal files of each employee. They can also inspect to make sure that the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and the Employment Equity Act are available on the premises to be inspected by the employees.
Now, as we know, the safety of our farmers and farm workers is of major concern in the country currently. How can farmers confirm that this inspector is exactly who they say they are?
Well, labour inspectors have the authority to act in terms of Section 65(1) of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. And because of that, they can enter any premises, including farms, without any prior notice at a reasonable time. They can also get a written authorization from the Labour Court to get premises onto farms where the employers don't want to give them access. However, we can't deny the fact that farmers are vulnerable people at the moment. So before a farmer grants them access, they can request to see a signed certificate. This is a certificate that the minister provides to each inspector, which states that the person is a labour inspector, under which legislation that person performs those functions, and which functions that the person can actually perform. So if ever someone does get to their premises and say that they are a labour inspector, they can actually request to see the certificate, and if they don't have it, they can deny to grant them access and ask them to come back when they have a signed certificate.
Now, as we know, we've got many foreign farm workers. Are there any laws concerning them that farmers need to comply with?
Well, it is a fact that South Africa is a popular destination for foreign-born migrants who are in search for better socio-economic opportunities. And as a result, the Immigration Law Act, Section 38 of the Immigration Law Act, states that no person can actually employ an illegal foreigner or a foreigner whose status doesn't allow them to actually be employed by such a person. Because there have been cases where illegal foreigners are employed by these farmers or any other employers, and they exploit them because of that. So now there actually is a law that states that you can't employ an illegal foreigner, and you need to ascertain the status of each employee that's in your premises.
Are there any repercussions for farmers who do not comply with labour laws?
In a perfect world, we'd like to believe that every person complies with any laws and regulations that apply to them. However, that is not the case. For example, with some of the inspections that have been conducted already in Mpumalanga, in Bushbuckridge and Standerton, there have been employers who shut down their businesses for approximately 2 days just to frustrate the inspections. Section 49(3) of the Immigration Act makes the non-compliance with the regulations a statutory criminal offence, which is punishable on a first conviction with imprisonment at least not exceeding a year or a fine, on a second conviction, imprisonment not exceeding 2 years or a fine, and on a third conviction with imprisonment not exceeding 5 years without an option of a fine. The fines can range from 7,000 Rand to 50,000 Rand per person depending on the contravention. On the other hand, if a labour inspector has reasons to believe that the employer has not complied with the Basic Conditions of Employment Act provisions, they have to secure a written undertaking from the employer to state that they will comply with the provision. And if they don't comply, they can alternatively get a compliance order. This compliance order can be made an order of the Labour Court if the employer does not comply or object to this compliance order.
So rather be safe than sorry, I think, yeah. How would you advise farmers to make sure that they comply with the Department of Labour's expectations?
Well, first and foremost, farmers need to make sure that they have copies of the various labour law legislations, and most specifically as or Sectoral Determination 13. They can get these legislations and the sectoral determination from the labour law, from the Department of Labour's website on www.labour.gov.za. But I'd also advise them to ask themselves a few questions, basically. Are my workers' basic work conditions in line with Sectoral Determination 13? And do I have a copy of this on my premises for the workers to inspect? Am I registered with the Unemployment Insurance Fund? Am I registered with the Compensation Fund? Are my workers and I trained to recognize health and safety problems? Do I have an attendance register? And do all my foreign workers have valid work permits?
Well, thank you for the good advice. And that was Boitumelo Lebeko from VDT Lawyers, and she's gave us more information and advice as far as farm inspections are concerned.
Goeiemôre kykers. Vandag se termynmarkverslag kan daar gesien word dat rooi vleispryse verlede week geen groot verrassings gelewer het nie. In terme van beesvleis het A2 karkasse met 0,2% week op week gestyg, terwyl die prys vir C2's met 1% gestyg het en die speenkalfprys wat net 0,2% hoër is. Skaapvleis het A2 karkasse 0,1% gedaal, terwyl C2 karkasse met 0,5% gedaal het, met die speenlamprys wat 1,3% sterker was. Varkvleispryse het steeds sy stygende tendens voor. Vesel aanbetref was daar geen bokkarveilings nie, maar die wolprys het met 'n volle 9,9% gedaal en dit is op die rug van Australiese prys wat oor die afgelope 2 weke ook met 9,3% gedaal het. Graanmarkte aanbetref het wit en geel mielie se pryse effens teruggesak die afgelope week, terwyl sojaboon en sonneblom se pryse redelik skerp gestyg het met 3,1 en 7,1% onderskeidelik. In terme van die wisselkoerse het die rand verstewig die afgelope week met 0,6% teenoor beide die euro en die dollar.
NutriFeeds, die formule vir sukses.
Wessel Lemmer is 'n bekende gesig in die landboubedryf en het onlangs die leiersels by Mariana Purnell oorgeneem. Sy was altyd by Agbiz en hy is dan nou ook die hoofbestuurder van Agbiz. Nou Wessel, jy het natuurlik nou 'n groot loopbaanskuif gemaak. Ons ken jou van Graan SA en toe gaan jy nou Absa toe en nou is jy by Agbiz Grain. Hoe stem die finansiële banksektor ooreen met graanhantering en opberging in daardie sektor? Is daar 'n ooreenkoms?
Ja, Lise, weet jy, dit is eintlik baie interessant, want die graanhantering en opberging sektor kom ons nou al oor baie jare heen. En dieselfde is met banke, wat ook maar oor eeue en jare heen. So die besigheidsmodel vir 'n bank en vir 'n graanopberging en hantering is maar baie dieselfde. Nou, as jy nou gaan kyk na die ooreenkomste, sê ek oplet met dit gesê, is daar baie min wat 'n bank kan doen, anders as wat hy oor al die jare gedoen het, en eintlik met dieselfde met graanhantering en opberging. En daarom sal jy oplet dat daar soveel wat beide sektore bykomend doen vir hulle kliënte, vir produsente en vir die res van die wareketting, handelaars en die meelenaars en die veevoervervaardigers in die totale graan-oliesare sektor, waar hulle bydrae wil maak behalwe dit wat hulle reeds doen. En ek kan nou net vir jou voorbeeld noem. Ek is nou 2 maande by Agbiz en ons het een projek oor die 2 maande geïdentifiseer wat ek vir Agbiz Grain self doen. Die res is alles waar jy waarde toevoeg na kliënte en klante toe. En ek het net besef, daar is soveel wat die sektor doen, maar hulle hang dit nie in die groot klok nie. En ek hoop ook kan op hierdie wyse dit ook 'n bietjie meer aan die groot klok hang. Dis maar basies oorhoogs. As jy nou gaan kyk na, as jy nou weer by 'n silo verbyry, dan dink jy jouself daarin, dink daaraan as 'n bank. So 'n boer kom deponeer sy graan daar, so daar is deponering van graan, van mielies, en daar is deurlopende onttrekking van mielies. En in 'n bank se boeke is die kapitaal wat gedeponeer word eintlik vir hom 'n las, want dit dra koste. Nou vir 'n silo-eienaar is dit presies dieselfde. Dit is eintlik 'n las vir hom, want dit dra koste en hy moet die graan opberg, hy moet die risiko neem van die graan, hy moet sorg dat wat ingelaai word uitgelaai, hy moet die kwaliteit daarvan waarborg, en dit gaan saam met koste. So eerstens, het jy soos 'n bank, het jy jou hanteringskoste, nee, die inlaai-koste en die uitlaai-koste is hantering, dit is soos wat jou bank sy nie rente inkomste het, en dan jou opberging, daaglikse opberging en hantering nie hantering en daaglikse opberging, dagtarief, jaarstoor, is maar basies jou rente-inkomste soos by 'n bank. En as jy wil waarde toevoeg tot 'n klant en wil jy met jou kom besigheid doen, dan moet jy iets vir meer bied as normaalweg. Nou, ek het net vir jou genoem, ek het een projek gehad, net een, oor die hele 2 maande wat ons geïdentifiseer het, wat ons wil doen wat Agbiz se lede bevoordeel. En ek kan nie eens met jou daaroor praat nie, want dit is sogenaamde work in progress.
Ja.
So jy vat daai projek, jy gaan deel dit met die meelenaars, met die handelaars, jy gaan praat met veevoervervaardigers, met Graan SA, en sê maar goed, is dit vir julle aanvaarbaar, en as daar 'n konsensus daaroor is, dan vat ons dit nou verder, dan word deur die bedryf aanvaar. So dit is nou nog iets so kom ons sê, dit is nog 'n proses, en ek kan nie eens regtig daaroor gesels, nee. Maar wat ek jou kan vertel, is waarby Agbiz betrokke is. Jy kan amper maar sê vir die, in hakies, die common good. En jy sou verbaas wees, want soos met 'n bank, waar daar geld heeltyd in en uitvloei en deurvloei, is Agbiz se lede eintlik in die middelpunt van waar alles gebeur. En ons kry baie kritiek, soos banke ook maar kritiek kry, maar ek dink ons maak 'n ongelooflike bydrae, en ek sou jou graag meer daarvan wil vertel.
Goed, watter rol speel Agbiz in die landboubedryf? Jy het nou so vinnig 'n paar goed genoem reeds.
Ek dink min mense besef dit, dat ons byvoorbeeld, kom ons begin, ons is nou betrokke by die Suid-Afrikaanse Graan Laboratorium. Daar word jaarliks in terme van jou mieliekwaliteit verslag, en daar is nou ander sektore ook, waar daar kwaliteitverslae gepubliseer word. Maar in totaliteit is dit hier rondom 1700 monsters wat ewekantsig reg deur die land geneem word, wat in daardie kwaliteitsverslag op 'n jaarlikse basis, waar dit gerapporteer word vir al die sektore se voordeel. En Agbiz se lede doen daardie monsterneming en die instuur van die monsters is op ons koste. So ons maak 'n geweldige bydrae, en met die data mine, soos Viana dit nou uitdruk, wat nou kan doen oor al hierdie jare van al hierdie data wat byvoorbeeld bymekaar gemaak is, wat jy nou kan gaan kyk, wat is die tendense met klimaatsverandering en tendense in kwaliteit en wat verander het, en om dit aan te spreek. Dit kom daar uit, en dit maak 'n groot bydrae vir die bedryf in totaliteit. En dan is ons betrokke by Sages, met die invordering en die lewering van mielies, daardie data wat deurgegee word aan die einde van die dag deur die vraag- en aanbodkomitee. So ons maak daar 'n groot bydrae, want markinligting is baie belangrik.
Dankie. So sê Wessel Lemmer, hy's nou 2 maande in die stoel as hoofbestuurder by Agbiz Grain.
Standard Bank, voluit vorentoe. Net 'n film. Grow more with less.
Lyk dit nie soos die perfekte prentjie nie. Dit kan perfek aan die buitekant lyk, maar weet jy regtig wat aan die binnekant aangaan? Sukkel u diere weens spierstyfheid en lae reproduksievlakke wat lei tot 'n swak produksie vir u? Hulle kan aan 'n seleniumtekort ly. Dis 'n algemene probleem wat baie SA-plase aantref. Salowen behandel en voorkom 'n seleniumtekort met 'n eenmalige behandeling. Voorsien genoegsame selenium vir tot 'n jaar in beeste en 'n jaar en 'n half in skape om immuniteit, voortplanting en produksie te help. Praat vandag met jou veearts oor Salowen.
Maak seker jy loop nie Maandag se episode van Plaas TV mis nie. Ons het 3 kenners van die Nasionale Meteorologie Instituut van Suid-Afrika saam met ons in die ateljee om oor hulle ongelooflike werk te gesels. Tot dan, geniet jou naweek en sien jou weer Maandag.